You gotta stand back here. All right, so let me just put this back.
Where's Rob, our AV guy?
Thanks, Chris. All right, let me try that again. Way better. So yeah, I'm Kris Cox. I am not a motorcycle expert. I haven't been riding motorcycles my whole life. I'm not even from South Carolina, but somehow I managed to create this thing called the South Carolina Adventure Route. And Cheyenne asked me to just share with you a little bit about how I developed it and why I developed it. So I was in the military for a career, and then I retired in South Carolina, largely because my last two assignments were in South Carolina, and my kids graduated from high school in South Carolina, and my wife had some medical stuff, and her doctors were here, so it just seemed like a good place to retire. Plus, we really enjoy it here. People are great. We've got mountains, we've got ocean, we've got everything here, right? And a friend of mine named Hans got me into adventure riding in roughly 2017, 2018. And so when he got me involved in adventure riding, everything seemed to be happening up in North Carolina or up in Virginia or up in West Virginia. And so I was always having to ride 4 hours to get to the adventure riding. And I got into adventure riding enough that I decided I wanted to ride the Trans-America Trail. That's a common bucket list item for us adventure riders. So I rode the Trans-America Trail, and just prior to doing that, actually I did it in two pieces. I rode the eastern half and then the western half. And prior to doing the eastern half in 2019, I had gone into a motorcycle shop in Columbia, and I had asked if they had adventure helmets because I needed a new adventure helmet. The first one that I had bought was kind of a real cheap one, and I wanted to get a better helmet. So I walk into this motorcycle store, asked for adventure helmets, and the salesman insisted to me that there was no such thing as an adventure motorcycle helmet. And I'm like, well, I know there is because I own one. And I've seen them in catalogs, and I've seen them online, and no, there was no such thing, he said. And so, I put two and two together, and I was like, the adventure community just doesn't have a big enough presence here in South Carolina. So I want to do my part to increase that presence and help the ADV community grow and get visibility. And I had just retired, and I had time, and maybe it was partially selfish too, but I wanted to have my own route that I could ride that was close to home, that I didn't have to ride 3, 4, 5 hours to get to. So I sat down one day with Garmin Basecamp on one screen on my computer and Google Maps on the other screen on my computer, and I started plotting this route, a loop, because I wanted it to be a loop. I didn't want it to be like some of the other routes I've seen where you start at one end at the other end, and then have to figure out how to get back to the starting point. So I thought a loop would make sense. Do a loop around the state, and I used Google to the satellite view in Google to zoom in and kind of look for where there was gravel and dirt versus pavement. I used Street View where it was available to zoom down and look for gates and other things that I didn't want to be part of the route. And so that's how I started it originally. And then I shortly thereafter started a Facebook group, which many of you are a member of. And I started soliciting help from local riders around the state because I'm not a South Carolina native. I don't know the state as well as people who've been riding in the state their whole lives. So from the start, really, yeah, the impetus was mine, but this has really been a community event to get the S.C.A.R to where it is today. I've had all kinds of input from all sorts of people around the state in terms of things that might be good to include in the route. And I've also had a lot of people help do recon for some of those parts of the route too. And that's a lot of work to do the recon. So really, it's been a group effort. We did the first release of the S.C.A.R I started that computer stuff back in like September, October of 2019. And we did the first release in March of 2020. And Kenny Rodriguez and Dan Bowles and a couple other people helped do a launch event, and we met down at Champion Honda. How many people do you guys think there were down there? Probably like 50? It was a big group, like 50 people for the initial ride on the S.C.A.R, and it just showed to me the need or the interest in having a local adventure route in South Carolina. So, fast forwarding now, the routes had to morph some. We've added to it. Dana Brown, now there's a lot of people I could thank, but Dana Brown especially is one of them, because he is also a moderator of the Facebook group, and you'd be surprised how much time it takes to moderate that Facebook group. There's all kinds of spammers and people who shouldn't be on there that we have to continually kick off and stuff like that. So thank you, Dana, for all you're doing with that. So what are we on? Version 13 of the S.C.A.R right now. So we've had iterations that have been released ever since March of 2020. And oftentimes those iterations are due to a bridge closure or something like that. And then I call the county and they say, yeah, we have no plans to fix it because we don't have money. And so then I have to reroute, that part of the S.C.A.R in a way that doesn't include that bridge. There was an incident in Francis Marion where the Forest Service let a lease of one of their roads expire, and so that road went back to the landowner, and he gated the road, so a bunch of local residents were pretty upset about that because their commute went from like 10 minutes to a half an hour. But we also had to reroute the S.C.A.R for that. There's a new version of the S.C.A.R, version 14, coming up probably the end of March or for sure by mid-April. And a big piece of that is Charleston has been growing so fast that the original S.C.A.R just back 3 years ago is already getting really encroached on by urban sprawl from Charleston. So I'm going to push the route out further away from Charleston a little bit so that it's not running through the new neighborhoods and running by the new schools and all that sort of stuff. So really that's how the S.C.A.R got to be. No special magic, just a lot of community interest and community help. If I stand over here, is it better? Community help, and it really has been a group effort. And this rally really is kind of related to the S.C.A.R, and the S.C.A.R is related to the rally. We've got really good synergy going in the ADV community here in South Carolina, and I'm really just happy to be a part of it. I thought I would keep my talk short and do a little Q&A too. So does anyone have any questions about the S.C.A.R? You're gonna have to.
I understand that GPS Kevin has actually stolen the S.C.A.R. and he's now selling it. Your various iterations, there are ways for you to release those and protect the property, intellectual property rights, so you can't do that.
Yeah, that's true. GPS Kevin has stolen the S.C.A.R along with quite a few other routes that are out there, and then he repackages them and sells them himself. There's not really much I can do about it. I mean, I'm not a copyright attorney or
Fuck that
anything
guy.
like that, but I don't think there's much I can do about that. The reality is the S.C.A.R is free. That was one of the core tenets of the S.C.A.R. I wanted it to be free for everybody. So if he wants to sell it, what I noticed most recently is that he's selling a version of the S.C.A.R that's like 3 versions old. So if people buy his version of the S.C.A.R, they're going to be running into private property. closed roads, stuff like that. So they're probably not going to be real happy with this product. And especially once they realize they could have just downloaded it for free. So yeah, it's probably really not worth my effort to try to do anything about that, unfortunately. But people will be people. So, any other questions? No single track. There is some single track along the S.C.A.R with some of the OHV areas, but the S.C.A.R itself doesn't include any single track. It's all public roads, forest roads or public roads. You know, one of my goals has always been to keep the dirt percentage as high as possible on the S.C.A.R. So every time I do an update, I'm looking for options to do that. And I'm always open to input. So if any of you have ideas for, hey, can you loop this piece in instead of that piece? You know, I'm totally open to that.
It's awesome.
Because, like I said, it's essentially our route, not my route. So I just want it to be as good as possible. Any other questions? Is it a year-round route? Is that what you said? Yeah. I think pretty much it is. There are some, you know, the occasional snow that we get in South Carolina, but when we get it, it melts real fast. So, you know, I think I would say it's a year-round route, especially, you know, if you're coming from up north. Most people I know from up north come. I mean, we've had Canadians and stuff come down here to ride it in the winter. So yeah, I'd say it qualifies as a year-round route, as long as you're cool with some cold weather riding potentially, especially in the upstate. So, anything else?
Any plans to expand it to other states or another project?
No.
Just keep it South Carolina.
Just keep it South Carolina, and I'm probably not going to add that many more alternates either. I might adjust some down the road, but
yeah.
What's the mechanism for us providing feedback and getting it updated? I'm sorry if you answered, I came in late.
Yeah, there's two main ways. One is the Facebook group. That's probably the easiest way, and people will either post suggestions on the group or they'll message me privately through Facebook Messenger. There's also a way to email me through the website, I believe. So both of those ways will work.
What do you ride?
What do I ride? I have a KLX 300 that I rode today, and actually what I rode today was that piece of the S.C.A.R that's going to be part of the version 14 update that goes basically between Parker's Ferry, which is by Cottageville, and then loops around up toward Lake Moultrie. So there were 3 of us that rode that together today, and it's, you know, it's more pavement than dirt for sure, but as you get closer to Lake Moultrie, there was more dirt. And then the other bike I have at the moment is a V85 TT, which is the one for sale out there, if any of you guys are looking for a V85 TT. But I've had different bikes. I had my previous bigger bike was a KTM 890. Before that, I had an Africa Twin. And before that, I had a 02 F650 GS Dakar. And that was my first adventure bike.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Anything else?
Nice.
We're kind of new to this. I just want to say I really appreciate
Yep.
What do you ask?
Yep.
Just said I appreciate all the work.
Really?
Thanks. And you're welcome. Yeah, really, I appreciate it, but really, it is almost hard for me to receive the thanks because it is a thing of passion, and sometimes I feel kind of selfish about it because I, in some ways, did it because I wanted to do it for myself, you know. But I'm really glad that we can all enjoy it together, and I'm glad that it's helping build the ADV community here. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, one more. Any more questions? All right. Oh, one more.
How do you make sure it survives?
How do I make sure it survives? Well, I guess, you know, it kind of takes care of itself for the most part. The only thing that really needs monitoring is road closures. Permanent road closures are the thing that really would require attention. So I'm going to keep managing it as long as I care to. And if I ever decide for some reason that I don't want to or I can't, then I will pass that torch to somebody.
Okay.
I have noticed that as the Facebook group has been growing, we might, I'll speak South Carolinian here, could use a new, a few more moderators in the Facebook group. So that's something, because I know Dana and I are constantly on there approving people's membership requests and denying posts and stuff like that. So yeah, we could probably use a few more people helping watch that. Somebody mentioned, maybe it was you, Dana, somebody mentioned maybe having some kind of ambassadors from different parts of the state, which is something to consider too, because I live in the Midlands. Dana lives in the Charleston area, and we don't, you know, neither of us are as familiar with the upstate. So it'd probably be good to have kind of a subject matter expert from the upstate, the Midlands, the low country. So if you're interested in helping with that, just let me know on the side and we can see what we can work out.
Volunteers from
Oh, we
the
have
upstate.
volunteers? Cool. Yeah, catch me later and we'll talk about it.
Cash me on the side.
All right. Is Cheyenne here? Somebody else is speaking next, right?
Jason.
Oh, 3 more songs?
Oh, absolutely.
You guys are up. All right. Thanks, everybody.